This is 89.7 FM. Broadcasting live 24 hours a day. 89.7 FM.
So most people who get overqualified suffer a disease that I always watch, the one that they don't know that they do not know.
Yeah.
And that's the most painful thing that you can see, somebody who doesn't know that they don't know.
And that's dangerous.
So, and I think experience for me then comes in there. So a balance between education and work is very important. I don't believe you must stop reading or studying because you're working. You can do both.
Yeah.
But moving more towards work as well, so that you can actually have the balance. And as a woman going into corporate, there aren't any snakes there. It's not a scary place. I think what you find is the people who make it are the people who realize that you get a one shot at an opportunity. And you grab the opportunity with both hands, you run with it, you make a meaningful contribution in your corner, and people will recognize that. And because of that, you'd find that you're actually going up the ladder the same way as your male colleagues.
Mm-hmm. I think we just need to, take a bit of a music break, yes. Just one song. Allow the listeners to just digest,
yes,
because a lot of knowledge is just being disseminated right here in the studio. So this is the Business Price right here on RMR 89.7 FM.
We're still listening to RMR 89.7 FM. This is of course the Business Price, and in studio we're still joined by Miss.
And just before this, the issues of education and gender, it was becoming quite deep in studio. And on a sort of a lighter note, right, I would beg the question: what advice would you give an ambitious young lady who's going, she's got the rest of her life out there. For this question, I have to be sort of, gender focused, gender bias. What advice would you give, an ambitious young, female who's out there? She wants to, achieve lots of things in her life. What advice would you give that person in terms of finding a partner?
That's a tricky one, eh? Because finding a partner, I was talking to one of the young women day before yesterday. We had lunch, and I was saying, what's funny is when we're driven and you love your career and you're chasing it, etc.
Yeah.
There's a chance that you're not exactly where you want to go in terms of your career.
Yeah.
But you don't think a lot about the person you want to be with.
Yeah.
Because falling in love is a hard issue. So you don't think about it and plan it and structure. I want this husband, he must have a bit of a tummy and a bit of this. You don't think like that. Some love hits you.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to plan for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and yet your career you can plan.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that for the young, ambitious women, there are men out there, very good men.
They exist.
They exist. They are gentlemen. They'll look after you. So just continue doing what you're doing, and at the right time, you'll find the right partner, and you will get the right man.
Just also a bit of advice, or should I say words of wisdom, on people who jump around jobs because they're not getting promoted or it's just not working for them. Like 1 year in this place, another year in this place. What are they looking for, or they're always looking for something more?
I think the term I use to deal with that is, do not change your career. You're going to have to find your passion. So in the beginning, yes, you'll miss a few steps. It's a natural thing. But find your passion, stick to it. You can't say it's time for us women now, so I want to quickly become a CEO. And therefore, if they can't promote me here, I'm going there for promotion. Because you end up, Rolling Stone gathers no moss. You end up not being respected in any particular industry because there isn't much that you know about anything, though you've got the education, because the experience is different. So I think at some point you need to think about your career, and therefore it requires a bit of patience. And you will know, people take jobs that are bigger than them, knowing that they can't do the job, but because the money is looking good and the status and everything else, and then they fail. So rather than failing and tripping over yourself, the best thing is actually to sit back, build your career properly, give it time.
And then on that, how essential is communication in the industry? You can even use an example in terms of like logistics and what you've done before.
I think communication is a very broad subject on its own. So when you talk about communication, if you're working with people and you can't work in teams, you shouldn't actually be working in the mainstream management structures and stuff, because you have to work with teams. I mean, people like engineers tend to work on their own because they can talk to the machines, which is okay. So depending on what career you follow, you can't be in a people management environment and lack communication and lack teamwork and lack credit, because the other thing that I see a lot is the youngsters then compete and credit becomes very important, and sometimes you take the credit for your individual contribution and the whole organization suffer. So the goals of the organization should actually be the key driver.
Okay. I want to come back because we had this, we started off on an educational, on an educational level. I want to come back to, the issue of education. How important has education been in your life, one? And do you think it still serves the same purpose for our current generation? Because, I understand right now you're at Rhodes Business School. I understand this is your fourth, business school,
Wow.
that you've attended. So I'm sure you have a lot of experience in the between different institutions in different parts of the world. So, maybe you can shed some light on that for us.
I think education is going to be very important for a very long time.
Yeah.
Remember, we started off by talking about the fact that the developing countries that have made it,
Mm.
all the case studies point at one direction. Education has been key, and nobody has dropped the ball. So if you think about it, my father graduated in 1940 at the University of Porto. Education was important then.
Yeah.
I graduated in 1989 at the University of Transkei.
Yeah.
Education was important then.
Yeah.
Education is important today. It will be important for your children
Yeah.
and your children's children. Uneducated economies are not going to be developed properly.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge we have in South Africa is that we see a lot of money being thrown
At the problem.
at the problem of education, but we don't seem to get to the bottom of it, because we still promote things like kids can actually can pass matric with 30%,
Yeah.
and you don't know, and then you come back and complain and say institutions are not taking your children, and nobody's explaining to the parents that, more especially the uneducated parents, nobody's explaining to them that 30% is not good enough. It will never be good enough.
Yeah.
So if your child comes home with a matric certificate with 30%, you should be saying, go and repeat matric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think that, I did my high school during the days where we studied for 6 months or 3 months and then we would go on strike for the better part of the year. And my dad was just not forgiving. So I had to repeat standard 9 because I came back with 48% and I was promoted, and he said, nothing doing. You're not a 48% student.
Yeah.
Go back and do your standard 9. So I did that. We were still in standards.
Yeah.
I think it's grade 11 now. I did my matric, we went on strike. I came back with a school leaver, and he said, nothing doing.
Yeah.
An exemption is required here.
Yeah.
So I had to go back. So I did matric in 4 years.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the best life lesson and the best thing that he's ever done in terms of legacy.
Yeah.
Because I could have just been promoted in my matric, maybe did a small diploma here and there, because now my results are not fit for university, etc. The rest is history. So I think we can't drop education, guys. Everything else must come with it. Even the guys who are chasing money,
Yeah.
chase money, but do something on the side. And that's why I said I'm still studying today, and I keep saying to people that I'm approaching 50 very soon,
Yeah.
and I'm still studying, and I'm still gonna study.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 5-year plan on studying,
Wow.
which I hope is my last one. But it's a message to the youth.
Yeah. That it doesn't end.
I'm not doing this MBA at Rhodes because I'm hoping to be promoted. I'm the CEO of the company already.
Yeah.
So it's not a career-driven thing.
Yeah.
It's a passion, as well as the fact that we have to probably walk a bit of the talk
Okay.
to help the youth to understand.
Okay. I think adding to education, I think there's a sort of a practical aspect as well. And there has to be a mentality thing as well. And I think one way in which it usually works is through exposure, And I know that you've, like I said, like we spoke about before, this is your fourth business school in a different part of the world. So I'm sure that you've been exposed to different scenarios, different situations. How would you advise someone to get exposure just to different ways of life, different thinking? And I'm talking about the type of person who might not necessarily be able to afford, to go overseas, etc., but they still want to broaden their mind.
I think broadening your mind is about choices as well. Most people can actually afford to go overseas, but their priorities are different. It takes 7,000 rands only to get into Emirates and be anywhere in Europe. People buy cars and stay here. People buy expensive couches. And I'm not saying they're wrong.
Yeah.
It's their priority, because we're not here to judge anyone. It's priorities that we put on the table. So you can travel. It's very easy to travel, because even if you're not studying, just traveling broadens your mind.
Yeah.
You see my point? Even if you went to Europe for a week, even if you're backpacking in Europe, you'll come back a different person than probably. But it's priority. So you have got to sort of structure your life and look at what it is that you want to do and probably do that. And it's a question of how do you prioritize. Some people have been fortunate that you get the exposure because you work for a company during the transformation period, and you grab the opportunities, you make a meaningful contribution, and therefore you get the chance. But I'm saying that if you don't have that chance, we all can afford to travel, I believe. Most of us people who are here at Rhodes, most of the listeners, but maybe it's just not our priority, but it's one way of opening up your mind.
Yeah.
Because when you come back to South Africa, you realize how beautiful this country is. But you have to leave this country to know this.
To know that. Okay.
Even traveling to Zimbabwe changes your mind. People don't
Yes,
go
it does.
next door here, Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique. People just don't go to those places and they think, South Africa is like the capital of Africa, and therefore we have it all here. We don't need to go to Africa.
Yeah. Okay. This is the last question from me, at least. One piece of advice that you would offer a young man, a young woman who's about to take that step into the professional world, one, and then the best piece of advice that you've ever received.
I think the advice I can give the youth, I hear people saying that I've been looking for a job for a month. It's tough out there.
The way that she's shaking her head.
We're in a bit of a recession,
Yeah.
but I think we're not talking a lot about it because the 2009 hit us so bad.
Yeah.
So the commodity prices are low, companies are downsizing. So it's going to take a bit of creativity in the youth and a bit of patience from the youth to actually get a job. Some people I've seen begin now to work with no pay for as long as they can gain the experience, because chances are I'll get there and be as good as I can be, and maybe through that opportunity they can appoint me. So it's a chance that you can take. So my best advice, don't expect to get in and earn 15,000 after tax. It's possible,
but don't sell yourself.
But don't do that to yourself. Go there patiently and saying, I'll see what comes out.
89.7 FM.